Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be taking part in the launch of the AgTech Shake-Up Challenge. Thanks very much to Blink Innovation for the invite to be one of the speakers. I'm Amos from Food HQ, and we're a partner of Blink Innovation. I'll just bring up my slides here and share them for you so that you can see. So as you can see, I've been given two fairly big questions here to answer in my 5 to 10 minute slot. So I'll do my best to tackle them. How young professionals can enhance the pathway between science and foods that delight the consumer. I really think the key to this question lies in the pathway part. So it's between two things. So keep that in mind. Second one, how do entrepreneurs and investors accelerate the commercialization of innovative ideas? And I think it's really important to understand here that there's different kinds of technological innovation that can be commercialized, and it has different levels of impact and change. So we'll look at that as well. So first off, how can young professionals enhance the pathway between food and science? I think the best possible answer I can give in this short slot I'm allotted is to think about what a tea person looks like. And this can be applicable to a number of things, but it's historically used in science to explain researchers who have a very deep knowledge in one vertical, but also have a breadth of knowledge across multiple other disciplines. And why this is important is that if you look at a lot of the breakthrough technologies or some of the really interesting innovations over the course of history, where the magic happens tends to be at that intersection of disciplines. So it tends to be where a chemist runs into a mechanical engineer, or a software programmer meets a food scientist, and then they decide to run a bioinformatics or data-based program looking for specific proteins across different foods. And you see this magic happens right at that intersection. And it's not just restricted to science disciplines. So think about it like this as well. Let's imagine an investor that has a deep, deep knowledge in early stage financing and seed financing for startup companies. But unless he has, or he or she has a breadth of knowledge to discuss across disciplines, so understand how does the science system work, how does the next stage of financing work, what are some of the challenges within the vertical of science that they're interested in. So they have the deep, deep knowledge of finance, but they have the ability to communicate and discuss across disciplines, so across finance and science. I think that's the key point to take away, is it's at that intersection. So when you're thinking about forming a team or forming a company or a startup, I really encourage you to look outside of your own immediate circle, and especially look outside of your own immediate discipline. And so when you form a small team to think about and ideate what a possible innovation could be or product, you want to find people who are actually not like you and expose yourselves to them. So that's my answer to the first question. Second question around how do investors and entrepreneurs add to the commercialization of innovation? I think it's really important to see here that there's been a level of investment in innovation in food technology for some time, but it's really bumped up in the last number of years. And it's not because investment companies are looking to invest more in the same kind of incremental improvements to the food system that we've seen historically. They're actually looking to change the way the food system works in many fundamental ways. So whether it be by the democratization of access to retail, so lots of online entrants to the supermarket space competing and allowing farmers to perhaps find a different platform, or food producers to find a different way to market their food to consumers rather than just the typical food chain services where you enter retail or you enter food service. So, or is it biotechnology to try and change the way that proteins are created rather than relying on livestock agriculture, trying to say, is there a certain amount of proteins we can create in the world that would be from a synthetic biology approach. So these are really fundamental changes to the system. They're not incremental improvements, and that's really key to understand. And this, why it's jumped up here and that change of thinking has happened is largely because around 2013, there was the start of reports coming out really looking at how many people will live in the world in 2030, 2050, and how will we actually feed them and make sure that we have enough food in the right place for the right time. So the next part is looking at, when you think of investors and entrepreneurs, I see them as more disruptors than necessarily innovators. So you have at one end of this spectrum in innovation, and it's what you see a lot happen within most progressive technology-based companies, and it's been going on for a long time, and it's a really important part, and that's problem solving, minimal changes, low investment, low risk. So you're seeing moving from, in this example, taking Coke high in sugar and doing a Coke Zero version or a Diet Coke. Problem prevention, so looking at new features, medium investment, and this can be very typical of the auto industry as an example. And then you have this continuous improvement, and then at the other end, the creator of a new future. And I think that's where, when the question was posed to me, where do investors and entrepreneurs come into the commercialization of innovation? It's really at that disruptive end. Most research organizations and large companies, they have a fairly good model to commercialize innovation that is incremental and solves problems still within the way that the company works and within the system that operates around. So it's sometimes referred to as innovating around the core. At the other end, where entrepreneurs and investors play, that's in the really high risk space, high reward space, where it really does look to completely change a system or completely change a product category. Rather than making a new product, you're completely changing the product category. So when I think about what can they add to the equation, it's really in taking those big system changing ideas and finding a way for them to get to market. Because generally when they try to go through the process of an existing company, because they're so counterfactual to the way that company operates and the ethos and the thesis that is behind their existence, they often get killed off, or they are delayed for so long that they become irrelevant. So the really important part that entrepreneurs and investors have to play is to do really disruptive innovation. So I would push you and suggest that when you're thinking about these ideas, think big, don't think small. And my understanding from the team at Blink is that I will be joining one of the breakout rooms, and I'm really happy to take suggestions and questions from people and see if I can help the process over the challenge and help some of the participants firm up their ideas and think about what they might do next with their ideas and the process that's needed there. So thank you very much, and look forward to chatting with you.